Hello and welcome to Europa Universalis 4. I am Lord Forwind, here having done one of the hardest achievements in EU4, which was in this case, which is restore the Roman Empire and own the entire Mediterranean Black Sea coastline, so Mare Nostrum. So this was a really hard achievement. I pretty much just grinded this out over the course of like 2 days of free time. It was like, I don't know how many hours of play, like 12 hours of play or something. Anyhow, if you're an astute Europa player, you've probably noticed that I started this game as Austria, just based off the fact that I have a horde of vassals up here, because in fact I managed to pass all but the last reform in the HRE, and then I went on to form the Empire, still remaining Emperor of the HRE despite the event to form the Roman Empire, saying that you leave the HRE, but since you have the hereditary monarchy, it's always inherited by the same country, and they're your vassals. Even though you technically leave the HRE, everybody else comes with you as your vassal, and you remain emperor. Just to clarify that. So I also got in this run neither Holy nor German, which I'll explain what I was doing in the timeline here. So there we go. So obviously started as Austria. I did the pretty standard Austria start. I enforced a union of Bohemia by a royal marriage, no alliance, claimed throne, declared war, conquered them. Also with Hungary, I got a royal marriage and I got the union over them, which is the first time I have ever gotten that union, which was amazing. I don't remember when I did it, but I did declare war on, yep, there we go. I declared war on and actually triggered the Burgundian succession for myself. Now it's important to remember, I did not start off this run intending to do anything nearly as good as I did. I was going to play a kind of a diplomatic Austria game, try and get, personal unions over everything. I kind of did in the end. So I was focusing more on the HRE internally rather than externally, trying to, not stop the Shadow Kingdom. I figured I'd never be able to stop that. I have stopped in the past, but it takes a lot of work. So I decided to stay a bit more internal. So as you can see, I was conquering quite a bit of land from outside. I did manage to attack the Ottomans with the help of both Castile and the Mamelukes, break them there. England beat France in a war, so I pounced on and stole a couple of France's provinces. And at this point it was about 1490. It was before the Protestant Reformation was. I actually had more development than the Ming, which is unbelievable. I'm going to zoom out a bit more here just so you guys can see it all. Obviously I'm still beating up France and everything. I wish I could show you the religion of all of this, because the other thing I did was when the Centers of Reformation formed, I went religious ideas is my first, or my second idea is Austrian. I can't remember, first or second. Essentially, so I had the Deus Vult Causae Bell, and I could declare war on and attempt to conquer anyone who converted to a different religion inside the HRE, which I did. I think I killed one Protestant and 2 Reformed. Another was up in Denmark, one was in England, and Lubeck, I think you just saw it right here, attacked and took the Protestant Center of Reformation. So, yep, there's my conquest of Brandenburg. Take that, Protestant Center of Reformation, which was an alt mark. At this point, things start to go not so well for me, as in the sense that the Ottomans they killed the Byzantines who I was trying to save. They've got a lot stronger here. I think at this point I was allied to both Muscovy, the Mamelukes, and Spain, just to put it in perspective. Pretty much, I just sat around. I think it was right about here I managed to get disallow internal HRE wars. It was before you could even do the wars of religion. Yep, there's my annexation of both Bohemia and Hungary. Actually, it was after that, because I had to add all those provinces to get to it. But I get to it about 1550, and by 1580 I have done proclaim Eberkaisertum. The HRE is inherited by a single country, which gets me the declaration of religious peace. It was also at this point I decided that I was large enough and doing well enough that I would try and form Rome. And to form Rome, you have to own Italy, Iberia, France, Anatolia, the Balkans, and Mashariki. And in case you don't know what those are, obviously France, Iberia is the Spanish peninsula, Italy, Anatolia, Mashariki is down here. It's actually pretty much all of modern-day Iraq. And then you have to own Fez, Yorkshire, London, Cairo, and Tunis, and Vienna, and Flanders, I think it is. And obviously Rome. Once you take Rome, you actually get to see the requirements of the achievement. So it's about 380 or so provinces. So here we go. So as you can see all those little nations popping up, this is when after I got the HRUs inherited by the same country, I decided to get the neither Holy nor Roman. The way to do that is you have to have 7 free cities that are not German culture. So essentially at this point, since I had locked in the HRE really early and I had a solid amount of imperial authority, I went around in the HRE revoking free city status. And then I went to these nations, and you can actually click on a province, and there's a little button on the bottom that's like return province. You don't want to release them, but you can return the province to a country. And if you only return one province, it's a one province country. And if it has 10 development, they love you with enough imperial authority, bribery, and obviously the Austria's diplomatic reputation. I was able to create 7 free cities outside of it. However, it was also after this point that I had released all these guys and these guys that I realized that I had to own all the provinces in the area to form Rome. I couldn't have a vassal own them. So I actually had to not declare war, but I had to annex them, which was a bit annoying. So here we go. Obviously, Russia is starting to be big. Hormuz actually was monstrously huge. I was kind of impressed. England completely dominates France. And I think this was the boring part of the game, at least for me. I just kind of sat around getting imperial authority and making my decisions. Little wars with France, wars with the Ottomans, etc., just to gain the land. War with Poland to try and complete the conquest of Poland that you get. There we go. Yeah, essentially what I did over there by Lithuania, in case you're curious, is I cut off Lithuania from Russia because Russia was getting really large and hated me for taking these lands. So I lost my alliance with Russia. Still had it with Spain and Portugal, though, which helped a lot. It's going to be pretty obvious once I start really embarking on forming Rome, because you're going to start to see some really bad border gore. And also these nations over here will disappear pretty quickly. Also, Russia is going pretty ham conquering Persia. So that was kind of amusing to watch occur. There we go. Now I've started to take land. The Ottomans are dead at this point, which was a huge relief, but sadly, despite as powerful I was relying on a vassal swarm, so I don't think at this point I had anything above 70,000 troops. Obviously, I took out the Mamluks. I tried to get Jerusalem and get closer to Cairo. I took Mecca here for the additional missionary. And this is as far as I'll actually expand here, other than a brief war with Russia. There we go. So this was an interesting thing. So in order to form Rome, you need Yorkshire and London, which means I had to attack and invade England. And England is definitely the strongest neighbor powerhouse in the game, possible exception of Spain. So I fought really hard to get it. In fact, I relied on the fact that there were so many vassals of mine that had ships and allies. Spain was called into the war, that I just managed to sneak troops across enough and take those provinces. Once that's done, I don't actually conquer any more land in England other than their French territories. We had a brief war with Russia here because they had a couple of the Iraqi Mashariki provinces I needed. And that's all the conquest I'm going to do on this area for the rest of the game. I invaded Tunis, Egypt here to take the Tunis. And there we go, I've annexed all those people, so the name is now started getting really large. Killed Venice here. These wars were really tough. Even though I had superior numbers, I really couldn't actually beat them in a war. The forts, level 8 forts, just slow down everything. I had to get Napoleonic warfare, one of the splendor ideas from Age of Revolutions, to even have a hope of sieging down the forts. And I believe it's at this point where I decide I need to fight a war with Spain and Portugal, because I have to conquer Iberia and Italy, both of which Spain and Portugal owns. So yeah, I've actually already fought the war here. I've been in a war with Spain. I've taken Portugal's Canary Islands and the Azores, or actually not the Canaries, whatever this is, which is giving me that land. I only was able to take Granada and southern Italy from Spain in the war, and at this point I start truce breaking like crazy. As you can see, I took southern Italy in a war, but then immediately again I declared war and took some provinces here. At this point I started to realize that Spain, controlling, Niger, was a real problem, because even if I conquered all of Spain and occupied it, I would only get like 12 war score. It was ridiculous. So eventually what I do is I force Portugal to annul the treaties with Spain, and then I start taking forts. I took Fez there, which I needed. I was able to kick Portugal out pretty easily because this is all of Portugal's lands. Spain proved to be more challenging. I think it took 6 wars to kill Spain, all of which were, all except for one, were truce broken. Sadly, I made the mistake on the first war of not actually coring all the lands before I declared war on Spain again, which means I never actually cored it throughout the whole war. I almost collapsed due to the overextension and rebel sentiment that kept popping up everywhere. So what I did here, as you notice, Spain is now looking like a patchwork of lands, is I went through with the unrestricted coring splendor idea from Age of Revolutions, and I targeted every single one of their level 8 forts, hoping that that would mean that I could just march in, take their capital, because of course I'm using the imperialism casus belli at this point, casus belli. It was absolutely brutal. You'll see what happens here in a minute. I'm going to take a lot of Spanish Niger land. It's going to take, actually, I think 3 wars to take enough land from Spanish Niger that I can actually kick Spain out of Iberia. There we go. So I went to Spanish Niger, took every single one of their forts, because obviously you need to take the forts to get the war score, even if you have imperialism. So with the less forts, Spain, I only had to take 3 or 4 forts to get like 40% war score. There we go. I took the rest of their forts down here and I cut them off from the sea except in one point. At this point I realized next war I could take all of Spain, and that's when I formed Rome, obviously, because that was all I needed left. And once I had formed Rome, I needed to take the coastline here. You have to own the entire Black Sea and Mediterranean coastline, and that's pretty much what I did. I had to fight a war with the Ming, but I just sat back, let Russia, who, by the way, in case you're curious, when I got Russia as a union, because I got them really late game, I picked them up right after right before I actually took over the last bit of Spanish land. So I used them with the Ming. The Ming just marched out here and just got attritioned to death and then swarmed by I think when I declared war on the Ming, there was 800,000 troops in my empire, 400,000 of which were mine personally, 144 were Russia, and then the rest were vassals. The Ming had 300,000, so overall there was over 1 million men involved in that conflict in 1800. I conquered it all, cored it all, and I was still Catholic despite all of that occurring. So, as you can see, Catholicism was everywhere, with the exception of England, which was Protestant. The other thing I did, which proved to be really useful, was once I completed the religious ideas, I went through and I started culture converting, because I was so far ahead in diplomatic tech as Austria that I was able to convert this all, and this stopped the endless rebellions that I was getting from the Berbers and the Bedouins. Culturally, converting it all first was the big thing. Definitely needed religious ideas to control the empire. So I did influence, because obviously I was Austria. I wanted the reduced aggressive expansion, the diplomatic reputation, and the diplomatic relations. Then obviously I went religious, got the missionary strength, got the Deus Vult casus belli, which allowed me to suppress religious centers. Diplomatic ideas was just because, I'm Austria, I needed the diplomatic relations slots. Plus, the province war score cost is quite a necessity as well. At that point, I think this was about my war with England time. That was, I think, about the time frame. I realized I couldn't beat England in a head-on fight, so I had to do morale of armies from defensive ideas to even have a hope of beating England. I was behind in tech probably up until after I killed Spain, just for the sheer amount of admin power and military power I was spending fighting the wars and suppressing the rebels. And then I decided I needed reduced core costs, obviously because I was taking lots of land. And that proved to be really useful. With that and the reduced province war score cost, obviously admin efficiency helped a lot. I was actually able to take, I think Madrid, Spain's capital, was like 14 war score or something, and the rest of their lands were like 5 and 6s. It took a long time. Then I went quantity because I just kept running out of manpower trying to suppress the rebels. Yes, once I got the vassal swarm, I don't think I fought a single battle on my own other than Spain. Really wasn't on my own, but I actually deployed troops then. So my whole conquest of the Ottomans, Venice, and, well, obviously I had to use my troops to land in England. The rest I just let the vassal swarm deal with it. Then I realized since I was having so much internal issues, I should get local traditions from humanists, plus the indirect rule separatism helped. At this point, with a theologian advisor, the reduced to unrest advisor, I was able to pretty much any land I could survive rebel sentiment. I kept getting rebel sentiment. I just raised autonomy. I had no absolutism, by the way, for most of the game. I had to raise autonomy too often to do so. With raising autonomy, obviously the ideas from the HRE, the Reich Regiment, the reduced unrest helped a lot. Obviously, I had reduced coring from being emperor, reform the whatever that is. I was able to take lots of land really quickly, but it's still, the level 8 forts were killing me. If I had chosen a bit better, I might not have taken, I don't know what I wouldn't have taken. I might have switched quantity with offensive just for the siege ability because it was taking forever. As you can see, I never completed it, and considering it's 1801, the odds are I'm not going to complete it. I'll probably annex most of Russia, though. We'll see. Obviously, it would have been easier to annex Russia as Austria, but on and on and on. I didn't kill Poland either, just because the coalitions were too large. By the way, I never fought a coalition war at all. The reduced aggressive expansion from, influence ideas, having high prestige, diplomatic reputation. I was papal controller, I'd say, about like a tenth of the time. That helped too. I pretty much had 2 or 3 of my diplomats permanently on improved relations with offended, outraged nations, which helped keep it down. The only coalition I was facing that would have been a problem was late game. Spain, Portugal, Egypt, England, Sweden, and Poland all were in one. That could have killed me, but I just waited it out, which is why in the timeline there was a brief pause. But I ended up winning, sieging it out, and boy, that is one of the hardest achievements I've done. The only one that comes close was the Great Khan achievement that I had done ages ago. So, just to give you guys some stats, I have 6,000 development on my own, almost 1,700 development from subjects. Probably half of that is Russia, because they were, I think, the 3rd ranked great power, or 2nd, when I got the union over them. I think I had like 14 diplomatic reputation, which is why I ended up with it. Despite all of that, England did a really good job colonizing the world. The Ming showed up here to colonize Mexico, which was a bit of an interesting occurrence. Oddly enough, none of the colonial nations actually gained independence. They won their colonial wars, but they never actually took independence as one of their ideas. I really should have tried. I tried to release them, but I couldn't. It was really weird. Level 8 forts, though, I really hate them. you really needed tons of cannon. I was running around with 102 regiments of cannon. I still wasn't getting through them. Probably should have definitely gotten siege ability. But in case anyone's curious, here's the Roman traditions. 5% discipline, 1 legitimacy, plus 33% manpower modifier, -1 unrest, Pax Romana, Legacy of Rome, plus 2 diplomatic, SPQR, reduce stability cost by 20, Roman legions, 10% infantry combat ability, 15% land force, Roman architecture, 20% production efficiency, imperial bureaucracy, plus 10 national tax modifier, and Imperium Sine Fine, core creation cost, -20%. Obviously, by the time I got this, I had pretty much completed the achievement anyway. So, glad to have you guys watch this. Hopefully I've given you guys some help on that. And I'm so glad to have this achievement done. Thank you guys all for watching. Bye.